we're asking for an immediate apology and a review. An apology for the way that the investigations were handled in Rosebery, and a review into reopening investigation.
That there's still problems with the water in Rosebery. Is that
Well,
sure?
there's 350 houses last I heard that haven't got any. So what I'm saying is, if they had have even listened to us unpaid, untrained activists that were trying to do the right thing, then maybe they could have prevented what's happened today. That's what I'm saying. And also that it was a total fraud and it was totally corrupt in the whole investigation. 1 and 2. And now
there are still problems there.
Oh, yes.
Worried that more needs to be done to prevent further problems.
Our main concern is that this disclosure of lead in the drinking water in Rosebery basically negates
everything that
all
they've
the
said.
findings of the departments of health
And
and
the
EPA's investigations in Rosebery.
And the MMG, their own investigation.
It negates the entire investigation.
It basically says, we're right, you're wrong. And I don't think that it could be any clearer than that. And that's really what we want to get out there, because this is just ridiculous. Tasmania can't be seen as the tip of the world. It's just ridiculous.
Now, the important thing in the Department of Health's findings from the investigation in Rosebery between 2008 to 10 was that the toxicologists could not find a pathway
That was the issue.
that could ascertain any public health impacts on residents. Now, we now know that there is one pathway, that finally the secrecy over the issue of the failure of the Department of Health and the EPA to monitor drinking water back in 2008, in the report that Kay's got, you'll see one sentence only that mentions drinking water. Now, what the public need to know is that when Dr. Roscoe Taylor was oversighting that investigation, he relied on information from Tim Johnson from Cradle Mountain Water at the time that had just taken over, but he previously worked with the West Coast Council, and that information was based on one water sample per annum, one only, because I interviewed Tim Johnson 3 years ago in his office in Queenstown, and he admitted to me that they only monitor 4 metals once a year. So the fact that the DHS relied on one event of water monitoring in Rosebery in terms of the critical nature of the investigation is absolutely disgraceful. Now, we also know, in relation to pathways, the toxicologists said that they could not find a pathway. Both MMG and the DHS and the EPA, backed by the Premier Lowry meetings, have failed to publicly release the dust monitoring data. Now, without any dust monitoring data provided to the toxicologists in the Rosebery investigation, how could they ascertain that dust is a pathway? Environmental consultants Pitt and Sherry have done a number of environmental investigations into contaminated areas for mining for remediation purposes, both in Zion and also in Royal George. In both cases, Pitt and Sherry's environmental investigations have suggested that the environmental contaminants around the areas of Pea Soup and Zion Rivulet in Zion, and also the St Paul's River in Royal George, pose a potential public and environmental health risk. Now, it is extraordinary that the private sector are actually writing reports warning about public and environmental health risks years before government are forced to take action because residents have been exposed and public health threatened.
So
it's a disgrace.
What would you like to see the government do now? Why are you here today?
I'm here today to say that the Premier is right now finalising her budget, and I want her to allocate minimum of $250,000 to conduct the necessary public and environmental health investigations that now, as a result of this leaded water, have exposed that the previous health investigation was null and void.
Don't look, don't find.
Yep, we want the Premier to deal with the issues, the secrecy issues that are still outstanding about pathways.
And sacrifice.
So how many people are still living there, did you say? What's the population?
1,600, I believe. And of all of the houses, we heard the other day 350. I don't know if that's been updated. So about a quarter of the whole town has been affected, including my house. Would you believe?
So what's your background? Tell me your story.
Okay, well, I was close. I didn't know. I just was very, very skinny then. In 2008, my next door neighbour and I, her cat drank some of the groundwater. She tested the water, the ground, soil and the water. She came back and showed me the results, and I thought, hell. And I sent samples into the lab myself, and mine were even worse, and it appeared that it was coming from my property into her property. And it was found by an energy expert that it was coming off the curb, and it was actually the council's property. So they've blamed the council along. They said it's coming from. I'm not sure how we get heavy metals that way, but that's what they told us. And we reported it to them after we had blood tests. I had cadmium, arsenic, and copper poisoning at the same time. However, the fact that it was in the ground, on my land, and in me was not enough. The government said, no, I must have been eating fish or eating batteries. You know, that's actually in the report. They actually checked people to see if they had been swallowing batteries to make themselves.
So that was in 2008?
Yeah.
So what sort of health problems have you had since that?
I've got severe osteoporosis, fractured spine. I can't absorb vitamin D at all, so I have no healing in my back, and I have cancer in my sinuses on both sides now. I've been unable to see anyone.
So cancer in your sinus.
I'd like to give you some statistics from this report here, which are incredibly important statistics, which the government denies. As this today, somehow all these statistics have dropped, unlike anywhere else in the world. It's increasing. The health needs assessment communities at Rose Museum and Tulla said that 54% more West Coast residents died from cancer compared to Tasmanians in other non-metropolitan areas of the state. 54%.
The government would have you believe it's lost